Aaron, we are live on the DSA Today show, talk show, and I'm really excited that this is our first uh, chat on YouTube and throughout the country and on Facebook. And you coming up with the suggestion that we really need to make this happen. By the way, it's anytime you touch your microphone, it makes noise. And so we're recording. So if we can just be able to, uh, just try and be a little sensitive because when it streams live, it makes a lot of noise. And so anyway, let's get busy because we got to have the conversation. We got the election coming up. We have a lot of things going on around in the country, and I know that you, Aaron Maxey, you are a deep thinker. You have a lot of thoughts. You've been in the corporate arena. You've done a lot of things, and it's an honor to have you here today to host this show with me. And not only today, but in the days that come, we need to get the information out there. And that's why the DAS Today, the Descendants of American Slaves show, was created. And so I want to just say welcome to the show, co-host.
Well, thank you, Dr. G, Prime Minister of the American Slave Nation. Yeah, I appreciate that welcome. And I believe the nation has a public service announcement. Is that correct?
Yes. Would you like to go ahead and make the announcement since you came up with the idea?
Yes.
Let's see here. I have put it up on Facebook and out there. And you know what I can do, go out there real quickly and pull it up and
if you wouldn't mind reading that, and again, I mean, this is something that's coming from within us all. I don't think, certainly it was something that was sparked, an idea that was sparked in my mind concerning the up and coming election. This is the year of vision. That's kind of how I see it, 2020. And if you are out there and you have a vision for your own life, your family's life, this is the year to implement that vision. And the American Slave Nation will be empowered to assist you in fulfilling that vision for your life and for your family's life in this year 2020. So certainly excited, more than any other time in my life, of participating in this year's election and getting down to the business that we call the United States of America.
Okay, our then public service announcement. It's election time. What race will you choose on the 2020 page 7, line 7? Those of us who are descendants of American slaves will choose line 7 and write in American slave. Why? In reviewing the U.S. Constitution, we see that there are two races spoken in this business contract: Indians and slaves. So it's time to get down to business. When tax dollars get distributed this year, we will get our share of the $500 billion to be shared among the races here in the U.S. We want you and your family to receive your share. However, it will take much effort in freeing our minds and seeing this nation as a business. Do not get caught up on the term slave, because we celebrate our ancestors and there is many accomplishment to be put us in this position. Or I should say, it's been many accomplishment to put us in this position. The value we brought to the economic success of the United States of America caused them to write us in this business contract called the Constitution. But thieves have stolen this economic benefit by calling us everything but what the contract identifies us as. Misidentifying our race has been the strategy, and this caused some of us to choose personal success and a measure of approval from other races over organizing and strategizing ourselves to protect our communities. Dr. King mentioned in one of his last speeches that the economic war would be the battle to take on next, and we are here to claim what is ours. A new day is here, and although we are proud of what we have accomplished against such strategic odds, we are laser focused on the future business of the American slave nation. Us uniting around page 7, line 7 will have an immediate impact on our personal circumstances. So if nothing else, let's get to the polls this year so we can get our share of that 500 billion to be handed out. Census 20, page 7, line 7, write in, American Slave. Author, Aaron M. Hey, I like that. I liked it so much. I put it out on Facebook. I'm going to blast it on the other channels too, because it sums up exactly what we need to do. We need to learn, unlearn, and relearn that there's only been 2 races that was in the contract: Indians and slaves.
And while we appreciate all immigrants that have come to this nation to chase the American dream and for most of them to actually capture a measure of that American dream, the blatant racism that has occurred against our race, against the slaves, has kind of kept us out of that economic race. And it's a new day. We are here to help heal this nation. We're here to represent the oppressed in this nation. And, it's high time for a champion, of the oppressed people in this nation. And it's a huge task, one that we can't achieve on our own. It's going to take a lot of people to accomplish this, but we're in position. It's time.
And we have to do it. Even in the Constitution, it says when a people are not experiencing happiness, life, liberty, and success, they have the right to be able to stand up and say, hey, whoa, time out. We got to do something a little bit differently. And so all we're doing is exercising our rights as Americans. The other thing that we have to do, we just have to do it. It's one thing to talk about it, but we got to go make it happen, because groups, the descendants of slaves, are experiencing racial, economic discrimination across this whole country. Tomorrow, I'm going to an event down in San Diego with the young Black, I'm calling them American Slave Business Contractor Association, to stand with them, because they're following a $1 billion lawsuit against the San Diego Unified School District for blatant economic racial discrimination, where they're not even putting the bids out anymore. They're just giving and awarding the contract to certain individuals, certain major corporations, and to some immigrants. And that's unacceptable. And as the American slave culture, we have to now stand up. Nobody's going to do this for us. It's up to us.
Yeah, this was part of their strategy. It was to keep us ignorant, to keep us out of the know, to not really fully comprehend the Constitution and what it represents and what it means. And the more that we expose this unfair treatment and this unethical business practices that are throughout the nation, we need to challenge that. And we need to challenge that with a strong voice. And we need to challenge that with a united voice. And so, absolutely, I've been in construction and project management before. So I certainly standing with that group in California, absolutely. And hoping that they get recognized and that the outcome will, again, help heal the nation as a whole. This isn't a selfish movement that we've started with the American slave nation. This is one to allow the nation as a whole to look better to other nations. We need to look better to some of the other continents and the other countries that are out there that are doing great things. They may be wondering what we're doing over here in the United States of America. They may be wondering what's going on in North America and how things are actually evolving in terms of going forward. And there certainly are some perspectives from people that show a lot of doom and gloom, but we're not here to show that doom and gloom. We do believe in this nation. We believe in the success of this nation because we've been a part of that success from its very inception. And so we're here to actually solve a problem and to mitigate these circumstances that we're currently in from going into another civil war, because that's not what we need in this nation. What we need is healing. What we need is to work together. What we need to do is to acknowledge some of this nation's past sins, and that can occur, and it's already began to occur through Dr. Norris Shelton and Dr. Gerald Higginbotham, who I'm so fortunate to share this dream with today. So I'm excited.
Well, Aaron, we have our God-given rights. I mean, you know, there's just some things morally that we have to be about. And spirituality is doing the right thing. It shouldn't be just for one group of people. This country was founded upon the slaves. America technically is a slave nation.
Mm-hmm.
But the slave culture has been abused and misused, and I really don't want to get into that piece of how we've been led the wrong way by many leaders that, you know, did their own personal thing, but have not really been about the culture. And so someone or a group of people are going to have to stand up and say, hey, time out. We off course. We got to do things a little bit differently. I'm just laser focused on what needs to be done to help to heal the culture. I'm about having fun and talking about basketball and all those other things. But right now, we're at a point in history. And this is so important because people are recording the history of this country. What will they say 50 years from now? Did the people here in 2020 stand up? Those that knew better, did they stand up and work for true change to help to heal America? Or will they say that culture just went away because lack of leadership and no one cared about it? And so we have to stand up. And I'm an influencer. I'm about doing what needs to be done and getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about us. Here's where we are. Here's where we got to go. And one of the first thing, and I'm so glad that the young American Slave Contractor Association contacted me, sent me a message that, hey, Doc, this is what's going on. Can you help lend your voice? And so I met with them and shared with them America's Little Black Book, page 290. Matter of fact, I just read a couple pages. They said, we want to order some of these books. We need this information. You got this thing down pat.
Yeah,
and would you stand with us?
Yeah, that's a wonderful story Dr. Shelton put together, and it's not unique in its foundation. While he was a very successful businessman and he achieved a measure of success there, what is incredibly impactful was the decision for him to reach back for the American slave nation and not to continue on his journey of being that token.
Yeah, I love that about him.
That token descendant of American slave that is involved with a conglomerate or a group of business men and I hope women, that just want to kind of write history from their own lens. And Dr. Shelton wrote a book that isn't familiar with the book that I've been trying to write for several years. And I mean, it takes a while to get the chapters and then kind of, start the chapter. And when I saw America's Little Black Book, written by Norris Shelton, I mean, it was everything that I was trying to encompass in my own story and in my own life. And so I'm certain that America's Little Black Book will impact a lot of business professionals who have felt what he's felt, maybe in a different revenue stream or from a different lens, but it's that example of his journey is not an unfamiliar one.
And he's been on that journey for a while. I was impacted by the book. I was trying to, I knew it was an economic issue, and just because of, something hasn't been right in our community, because I saw the community burn down when I was younger. But after I read the book, it put everything in perspective. And it gave me the language. And for a minute, I got angry too when I read that book, about the slave culture. And I hated that name. But the more I read that book, it just kept gnarling on the inside of me that it's true. And I know that being a person and the values that I believe, being integrity, operating in truth and fairness and honesty, it took me just a little bit to engage. And I would read it and put the book down. I'd read it, put the book down, and it took me a while to get through it. And I just flew through it. But then I came back and went through it again, and I saw things in there that I missed the first time that just really opened me up to say, hey, I'm willing to put everything on the line. I'm willing to put the platform that I have to be able to get the word out, being a leader, being a captain, moving people from A to B to move our culture. And I want you to know it hasn't been easy because we have a lot of misinformation out there. We have a lot of
gatekeepers.
Oh, well, that's true. It has a lot of.
I mean, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and that's why it's mentioned in the public service announcement that you have people that look like us and by all intents purposes act like us until they're invited to that meeting behind closed doors.
And then they change.
And then all of a sudden their personal interest in things that they want to personally achieve comes before the community and the people. And it's unfortunate that has happened, but we're not blaming anybody. We're just moving forward. We're not.
We're gonna go around it.
We celebrate the past, but we're looking towards the future. And in you being the prime minister, there's a couple things that I'd like to do on our next stream. One is to be able to show on the screen, the mission and vision of what we're doing from a business standpoint, from a 501c3 standpoint, and then also to share with people. I believe it's the Constitution, the 14th amendment, and some other legal documents that are the United States of America documents, so people can see that at home and see it on the screen. And I mean, we weren't prepared.
And we can do that.
But
we can do that
another time.
We do that.
But one thing I want you to, Prime Minister, to do, because everyone may not understand your background. So let me share my background, which I only have the continent. I shouldn't say only, but I do have the continent of Africa on the wall there, and it was a gift given to me by a minister that actually traveled over there, and he brought that back to me as carved out one piece from over there. And I'll try to get a little more information, and you can't see the detail on it, but it does show the animals that are celebrated over there on the continent of Africa, and it's a really cool piece. But what's also cool is the flag background that you have behind there, and I'm sure that those that are watching the stream and or will view this later would be interested in knowing what that represents and means. So if you would.
Okay. Well, this particular version of the flag, and we have a couple, this here represents the American slave nation. Behind me, you see that there's 13 stripes, 7 red ones, 6 white ones. I'm sorry, 7 red ones and 6 white ones. They represented the 13 colonies that decided to, with the United States, to end slavery. The 23 stars, actually there's 24 stars. The 23 stars that go around, it made up the 23 states that made up the United States before the American Civil War. And the big star in the middle is the product that came out of America, the American slave. So this is the American slave nation flag. And I fly that flag proudly because America bred slaves. It created a culture here. It birthed slaves through the American slavery business enterprise system. And what made America's slavery so different from any other slavery, they purposely bred their slaves to be ignorant of their culture, ignorant of who they are. Even when they were selling the slaves, they sold them next to animals. We were considered a product. But they bred us to be ignorant. That's the difference. We are, and many of us are still lacking in knowledge to this day. And, when they kicked them off the plantation, just like when corporate America's finished with you, all they do is just kick you to the curb. However, the culture was still here. Even though at once they were out in the open, now they just sit by quietly. But they're still breeding, still producing for America to this very day. The culture's still here. America bred slaves, her firstborn, to build this great nation that we're in. That's what that flag represents. I'm gonna tell you something. We built this country. Slavery was the foundation of the American society. It was the economic engine. It was the cornerstone of America, and it made many, many millionaires in this country.
That's right.
And so we must not forget that. However, when they released them from slavery, after the American Civil War, there was nothing in the Article of Peace or the Article of Surrender giving anything to the slave culture. The only thing that was in is that they told the guys that we won't consider you traitors, go home. But nothing was ever documented what the slave culture should be getting. And that culture, the whole Civil War was about freeing the slaves. And so this thing is still flapping in the winds. It's never been addressed.
Well, some would argue that the Civil War was about voting and that they couldn't get, the other states to participate in the voting. I know I had read some articles around that. I know that they want to paint it around slavery, but to get the leaders to actually believe in the democratic process, and I certainly can be wrong because I'm certainly no expert in that, but they couldn't, that there were some issues in getting people in position of power in individual states, and that Civil War was a part of that as well, I should say.
Well, no, this is probably where I agree to disagree with you, my brother, because I've studied your American history as well as American slave history. The 7 southern states refused to turn loose their slaves, and they walked out of the Article of Convention meeting. And therefore, it was a thing called a de jure sendai. I believe if I said it right, meaning they didn't have enough to close the meeting, and they didn't have enough people there to decide what they wanted. So the 7 southern states walked out of the meeting, and that's helped to precipitate the American Civil War. No, the North saw that the South had an unfair advantage, free labor. It was about economics.
So yeah, to a certain extent, we're saying the same thing. It's about economics, not necessarily about us being freed. It was about the fact that it was unfair that the South
had an unfair advantage,
a residual return on their
free
commodity.
Labor. Free labor.
Right. Yeah.
It's all about economics.
I think, well, first of all, thank you for sharing with us, what the flag represents. I think that's very important. And certainly as we continue to evolve and do business with other nations, that's, going to be strategically important that they understand that we're represented as a whole by a flag or a couple flags, to your point.
Can I add another piece to that? Because people hearing this for the first time may not really understand what that flag means. But this flag means freedom. See, we were always considered as property, even still to this day. You have a social security number. You're a unit. And they look at units as what we can make money off the units. Taxes. We're still in slavery, not physical slavery, but it has evolved to economic slavery.
Yes.
Don't pay your taxes, and you will feel the ramification of this organization called the IRS that the 54 or the senators, these senators of the United States used to collect, that have given them full power to take your life, take whatever, take your family, and put you away.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still in slavery, except it's only economic slavery. America is still one big plantation. I mean, just keeping it 100% real.
No, it's true. It's true. And that's what is unfortunate about it. And I guess maybe in all nations, they're looking at their citizens as commodities. I mean, because it is a business.
Citizens are considered servants, subject, slaves. The three S's. Servant, subject, slaves. All three of those means you have signed a contract, or you were birthed into something that you are the property of the state. Now people are like, Dr. G, I don't want to hear that. Well, no, you need to hear truth, because only knowing truth is what makes you free. But the American slave nation is an opportunity for those descendants of American slaves to reclaim their property themselves. It is a nation state. It's in place. It was designed using international laws, the laws of nation. Mm-hmm. And it's we the people is what give the American slave nation its power. Every nation is governed by the people. The people give the nation power. Got to study the laws of nation. It's very, very empowering when you really know your rights and what you can do with them.
And there's a lot of organizations that provide a lot of literature that also supports that case. And so there's
Absolutely.
A lot of people that don't, for the lack of better terms, look like us, that are fighting the same fight.
Right. And I know we have this voting thing coming up, and it's important. And today's show I want to keep us focused too around that piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that, over $500 billion have been set aside for this US 2020 census, so that those cultures, after it is over, that has been properly identified, monies will go for programs to help that culture. And we want to get our fair share. We have not been getting our fair share. Yeah, they've been creating programs, Brother Aaron. But the program has been for minorities. It's been for whomever, immigrants. But it hasn't been specifically for the American slave culture. And so we need to set up specific programs across this nation that's labeled for the descendants of American slaves. We owe them this here for what they have done. Their ancestors did to build this country. And we have an obligation to put them in the American economic pecking order. That has to be done. So we have to address the identity piece. And everything is legal. It's in the Constitution. That is the ultimate document of the United States of America, is the Constitution. And they clearly labeled us in the 14th Amendment, section 2, the word slaves.
Right.
But the good news, Aaron, we have redefined what the word slave means. It's not what you think it means. I love the new name and maybe the new narrative redefined, because I've copyrighted the name. And anytime you copyright something, you are now empowered to redefine it. And so we have redefined it, and I'll share it on another show. But
so we got some good talking points that are coming up on our next stream. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. This is about empowering the people. And I'm gonna close on this piece here, because Dr. King said, and he wasn't talking to African American. He said Negroes. Back in that time, they was calling us Negroes, and blacks. But all those are nicknames that came out of the surname slaves. So really, he was talking to the American slave culture. I want to be clear on that.
That's right.
The next battle that will be fought for you will be out at the economic battlefield. And the economic battlefield is our communities. Every day, if you look at our communities right now, there is across this country, a major renaissance that's happening. However, our community leaders really don't understand what's going on. Bills are being passed that bring money to the community to fix the community, but the American slave culture is not getting any of that money. And so these white businessmen, these companies, I'm calling it corporate America, is coming to our communities, gentrification, and getting the money, and they're giving it to the immigrants. Money is being made in our communities. That's what's happening. But our people are not making any money.
Right.
And that's the reason why. That's the reason why this lawsuit that they invited me to come, and I'm representing the American Slave Nation and the American Slave Inc., where we will be speaking to this at the press conference. The descendants of American slaves have not been making any money in their community, but everybody else is coming to the community to make money, but the culture has not been making money. And so we have to see the different lenses. And as leaders now, we are stepping up. Leadership is about influence, nothing more, nothing less. We are stepping up as the real leaders of the American slave culture to bring about change. We will file lawsuits. We're going to do whatever it takes to shame corporate America into doing right. We have a plan. We have the Renaissance plan. We've now put together what we need to heal us, to heal our communities. And these corporate America and these nonprofit associations have been racially, economically discriminating against the American slave culture. And it's time out from that. And so we'll have to take them to court. We'll take them, we'll fight them. It's sad that we have to go in this direction, but whatever we got to do to make it, because that's where the fight is, on the economic battlefield. We're taking it to the streets. We're taking it to the legal system, and we're helping to get our people to stand with us as we begin to help turn this thing around and fix the American Slave Foundation of America.
And I think, just from another perspective is, we hope that we could just have a business conversation with philanthropists and those that give billions of dollars of money away.
That'd be wonderful.
Versus giving it to the government. They can give it to a movement that would be on the right side of history for this nation. And I think that that's what people need to consider and think about, is being on the right side of what America looks like 50 years from now. And I can share with you that those philanthropists that are willing to be on that right side of history, I mean, it's something that can transpire very easily and will certainly be an answer to what seems to be a dismal day in America today.
Well,
and these
I agree. No, okay. I agree, and I want, for those that hear me, I am not a rebel. I'm a peaceful, loving guy, but it gets to a point, because see, the things that I went through in the airline industry, I had to fight. But then I see this is a bigger picture. This is our society, and you get to a point. It's just like if you ever corner a rabbit. A rabbit it's a nice, soft animal. Corner it. It will fight. And we don't want to fight. We want love. We want to heal our communities. But it's at a point where we have to, Dr. King says the next battle that will be fought will be out at the economic battlefield. And so we want philanthropists to join us as we use this energy that we have to heal America and not fight. We don't want to fight, but at the same time, we got to do what's right to heal our culture.
Yeah, I mean, it is a war. It is an economic war, and in war, there's casualties. And so, I certainly understand what that means. And, these contractors in California, I don't see it any different than Byron Allen's case against Comcast and the federal government. Just because Byron Allen has established himself as a successful businessman, he still is being placed in the same category as all of us, which is you're still a descendant of American slaves.
And we can
And
still
they're not
take and
giving
control
him,
from you.
right, and they're not giving him, the opportunity to be in business on a large scale. And so they're doing the same thing with the contractors. And I applaud Byron Allen. He's a person
Oh, I
that
love him.
yeah, he impacted me, and he doesn't know this, but maybe one day I'll get a chance to share. But he impacted me when I was a little guy, and I'm not saying that he's much older than me, because I don't think he is. But he impacted me way back when he was doing interviews with minority athletes, and how he did those interviews and things like that. So I would love to share how that impacted me at a very young age. But to Antonio's more point, who I appreciate his mentality and his perspective as well. Byron Allen doesn't have to fight this case. He doesn't have to spend millions of dollars. Just like you're saying that, hey, we can take these corporations to court, and we know that there's a heavy changeover in judges, and there's some strategy that's happening down the road, because there is a strategy on the other side now. Let's make no mistake, there is an enemy out here, and that they are planning and strategizing against certain moves. But yeah, I mean, everyone is, and I don't think that it's a bad thing that Byron Allen can be viewed as the regular common American descendant of slave, or descendants of American slaves. I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that it touches Byron Allen in a different way, that says, I need to look out for my people, like Dr. Shelton did. He had an opportunity to move even to a higher level in business, and he decided not to make that compromise and to reach back for his culture. And I think that that's integrity. I think that there's business ethics involved in that. And I think Byron Allen spending millions of dollars to have these attorneys to fight this case is business ethics. I think that's an ethical way of attaching himself to the common man. And so, yeah,
he's fighting in the economic battlefield. I mean, he's out there he's on the field.
And he looks like me and you, and he's had experiences like you and I. And
right.
Although he's, maybe started out with some successes right out the gate, hey, he's still a version of you and I. And so
the good news is, here's what I see. That brother stepped out there. He's made it possible for others to step out there. And this what we're doing is going to help to heal our country. Because that's what we really need. We need mental, emotional, and economic healing in our country right now. And so I applaud Byron Allen. I applaud everyone in the movement for what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to take a massive effort to turn this thing around in our country. Can we do it? Absolutely. We have the tools, we have the resources.
And we have the leadership now. And that includes Yvette Cornell and,
absolutely.
And all of these individuals that are out there doing great work. We love you. We applaud you. We salute you. Keep doing it. We're listening. There's a lot of us that are just kind of sitting, we're just sitting in a pattern, in a holding pattern right now. We're listening and we're digesting and we're processing. But even more than that, we're strategizing.
Right.
Because it's going to take strategy.
Right.
And not always the strategy, should be put out there to the public like that. It may end up out there, but, not always does it need to be put out there right before everyone, right as we speak. And so.
But we do need to let people know that we are doing something.
Absolutely.
We're not just sitting around waiting for someone to come give us something. We're out there. We're going to make it happen.
So, which is important, if I can interject, we'll just go back to the public service announcement, which is the Census 2020.
Absolutely.
Page 7, line 7 is going to put us in a business strategic position to receive the funds.
Exactly.
So
because the money's out, they have allocated the money.
Right.
But
But you got to have a 50, you got to have a business structure for that money to come into. And you
right.
got to have the correct leadership to operate from a business ethical standpoint to make sure that people's interests are fairly represented.
And that's the reason why I like the American Slave Inc. Foundation, because it has the leadership. We now have a plan, we have a process that we can put in place. And so we're gonna, it's been said the wealth of the wicked or the wealth of the unrighteous has been laid up for the just. It's been laid up because we didn't go get it. But now we can go get it, and all everyone have to do, that especially a descendant of American slave or have American slavery lineage, is on page 7, line 7. You write in the word American slave. We all can do that on the 2020 census. Slavery was a business. And we have to now be about culture, business, so we can heal our communities, our families, and really heal America. Because if we don't do this, America right now is headed for a civil war. But wisdom can, leadership, wisdom can offset this thing, and that's what we're attempting to do. We don't need a civil war in our country. We don't need one. And guess what, Aaron? We have to know when to stop when we're out of time. Hey, we'll pick up on this. We'll pick up again here on another one of the DSA Today show. Hey, thanks for listening with us and joining us, and stand by and be ready to join the conversation again as we put information out here that's life-changing.
What race are you? Just if you think about any state or federal documents that you've ever had to address, they always ask you what race you are. And as you go down the list, you don't see us. You see Black or African American. I've been doing it for years, and I've been checking that box for years. I'm not checking it this year because according to the Constitution, the race is American slave. And this is from this is a business, and please don't misunderstand it. We celebrate what our ancestors have done. We love them. This is the next stage and the next phase of our fight, according to Dr. King. It's the economic battle. We have to identify ourselves from what the legal contract speaks to, and that's slave. That's why we haven't got the money. If you want the money this year, what race are you? Page 7, line 7, American slave.
Hey, Aaron, thanks so much. We'll catch y'all next time on another DSA Today show.